Good evening, everybody. This special meeting of the Board of Education for March 30th, 2015 is called to order. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to everyone present and to our television viewers. Any item that will be voted on this evening has been posted as required by state law. Meeting is being televised live and will be replayed throughout the next 2 weeks. Please check the board website for replay times. This meeting is also being streamed live on our PPS TV Services website. Director Adkins and Morton are absent this evening. So the first item on our agenda is consideration of a Step 3 complaint. Tonight we'll consider whether or not to accept an appeal on this complaint. Under the provisions of our new complaint policy, the board is not allowed to discuss the contents of the appeal at this time. Tonight we are only voting on whether or not to accept the appeal, so we will not be discussing the content of the complaint. If the appeal is accepted tonight, the board will then vote on the substance of the appeal within the next 30 days. Okay. The board has had ample time to thoroughly consider the complaint, the investigation at level 1 and level 2, and the superintendent's recommendation, which is that PPS will institute a recommendation for a pilot schedule for 2 varsity basketball games for the 2015-16 basketball season, where the girls will play at a later time, and that PPS athletics department will work with each high school to ensure that the bus schedules for the 15-16 basketball season do not disproportionately require early dismissal for any team, and that the PPS athletics department continue to work with high schools to avoid inequities in other sports that can be caused by these bus schedules. Board members, before you is resolution number 5055. A majority vote of yes means that the board will accept the complaint and vote on the substance of the appeal within 30 days, which means we would have another hearing where we would discuss the substance. A majority no vote means that the board will not consider the appeal, in which case the complainant may, we would accept the superintendent's recommendation, and in that case, the complainant could choose to appeal to the Oregon Department of Education. So, at this time, the board will now consider Resolution 5055, Step 3 complaint consideration. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second. Order.
Okay. Director Regan has moved and Director Belisle has seconded the motion to adopt Resolution 5055. Ms. Houston, do we have any citizen comment? Okay. Is there board discussion at this time?
It means we accept it.
Director Buell.
You do the hearing. Okay. Could we have our legal person come forward and read what says we can't discuss this, the substance of this at this point in time? Because you really want to accept the resolution or not based on the substance. I mean, what else?
So we'll ask General Counsel Jolly Patterson to come forward.
Thank you.
And I would also refer you all to the complaint procedure and the administrative rules. We passed this, in November, I want to say?
Yeah, we passed it.
And I think this is a great opportunity for us to see if it's working, and if it doesn't work, then we can certainly consider amending this, which will take public comment and all the procedures we usually go through to amend a policy or to change a policy. But
So,
Jolly, would you go ahead and explain
okay.
what the AD says now with regard to Step 3 complaint?
Thank you. So Jolly Patterson, General Counsel. So for a Step 3 complaint, here's exactly what the administrative directive provides. The request for a board level appeal should be submitted to the board office within 20 days of the superintendent's decision. The board will vote on whether to consider the appeal within 20 days following the receipt of the request for appeal. The board will be provided with the written record of appeal, including documents submitted at Step 1 and 2, and the decision of the superintendent. When the board was considering the policy and the administrative directive, there was some discussion about whether the board wanted to have specific standards for when they would accept an appeal or not, and I think the decision was that we were not going to include specific standards. So the administrative directive doesn't lay out specific standards that you will make your decision on tonight.
So at this time, we are considering whether we're going to consider the complaint.
Right.
Director Buell?
So there's nothing in there that says we can't discuss it now? You didn't read anything that said that?
No, there's nothing specific.
We could discuss
that-
it now, if we wanted. It could decide, we could have a discussion on what the merits of it are to decide whether or not we wanted to hear the hearing,
Certainly.
correct? There's nothing that says we can't do that.
Yes.
Correct, I mean, there's nothing,
Okay, so we could
I
have
read you
that.
the
That was
language,
my
so
point.
that's.
That's my point of order, so we could discuss it.
So I,
Okay.
what I'm thinking is, when we were talking about this before, it was if we all looked, we all had a chance to review the record,
Mhm.
and then could decide if we thought that there was, if enough of us disagreed with the superintendent's recommendation or something else, then we could certainly vote to review the complaint as a board, where we would have the opportunity to open up everything and review it.
Yeah,
So,
but we
I
could
think the
discuss
point,
it now.
I think that the point, sure, I think that the point is that there's a need to do that twice, especially if we would vote not to go forward. So, pretty simple. Anyway, so,
Well, I'm gonna.
let's go ahead and have some discussion.
Okay.
Director Curler, you wanna
Sure.
go first?
Yeah, I'm gonna vote yes, because I would like to have more discussion on this, and I think it warrants it. I would like to hear the appeal. After reading the record, it seems I would like to do that.
And I can go next.
Director Regan?
I would also like us to go forward with an appeal. I think it's a really important issue, and I think if we decide to go forward, we might even broaden the discussion around Title IX to do even a deeper appeal, maybe even surveying some of the female students and their families and see if there's other issues out there that we should be paying attention to. My sense is that we have had a policy around, or a practice around when different teams play for a long time, and when I look at it, that practice doesn't necessarily make sense. And I don't know why we wouldn't both consider a more equal distribution of, primetime slots versus non-primetime slots, boys versus girls, but I think we maybe even need to take the opportunity to expand the discussion. So.
Director Buell?
Yeah, I'd like to support both what Director Curler and Director Reagan have said. It's right up my alley. I think we may need a broader look, and we should listen to it. And that was my original intent when I was involved writing the policy, that we actually take a look at these things when they get to the board. So.
Nothing for you? Okay. So I am trying to remember which is a no and which is a yes. I'm
think a yes
probably
is
gonna
that
be a
we-
no.
Okay, a yes is that we won't look at it.
And my reasoning is a number of things based on the record that I reviewed, including the reports from 2 investigators and the superintendent's review and recommendation. And that is that I was concerned, I guess I would start with, I really thought that the idea of running a pilot to see exactly how many people come to see the girls and the boys' games at different times was a good resolution for this. I'm fearful of us having the girls' games be later and having everybody come and watch the boys' games and then leave, because that's historically been what's happened. And so I wouldn't want to push our girls into playing at a time when they're not going to have an audience, when our whole idea is to have an audience to watch them. And so, so I thought that the superintendent's recommendation to do a pilot on these things would be a reasonable way to go. And then on the other part, with the concern about instructional time, I think that the recommendations that the superintendent made about working on that and changing those times and being cognizant or paying attention to those times on the bus was what we actually need to do. So I thought they were both good resolutions, and so that for that reason I'm going to be no. Anybody else? Director Regan.
From what I can tell, the loss of instructional time is real, And I appreciate the superintendent's position that, you know, each of the schools should take a look at that and try to figure out if they could tweak things. But at the same time, I don't know why we as a district wouldn't just set a policy that would make that loss of instructional time spread evenly between boys and girls. I don't understand why we would be looking at status quo in this case. When you're talking about looking at, you know, an issue of fairness in doing a pilot, to me the pilot should be 50% of the girls' games are at 8, 50% of the boys' games are at 8. We pilot that and we see what the response is. I don't know why we would do anything less than that. I mean, Title IX, that's what Title IX means. It's about equal opportunity for girls and boys. So I would strongly encourage my colleagues to please vote yes, and let's have the discussion, and let's also find out if there are other areas out there related to our practices and policies around Title IX. See if there's other issues out there. We got an email today from a student. It was from a student who wrote a newsletter article from Franklin, and you know there was another issue where the boys' tennis team had a coach from the get-go, and the girls didn't. And you know the day that the team started practicing, they still didn't even know if they were going to have a tennis team. So I don't know how often those issues are happening out in our schools, but it's our responsibility to make sure that we are following Title IX and making sure that it's working for our students. So I hope that we will take this on. It seems like a very reasonable request from this parent, and I'm grateful to the parent at Wilson for bringing it forward. I was a student athlete. At the time, I don't think I thought about the girls' games being early or late, but the more I read this, the more I thought, yeah, we're not treating the girls equally, and we should be. That's what Title IX is. So.
Right. I understand. I'm fearful that there is not going to be an audience. I mean, I've seen it happen.
I'm not sure that's the biggest
so
issue.
None of the folks will
That's
show
not
up.
the
Well,
biggest issue.
I think it depends on, I mean, why, if you're talking about prime time would be when people come to see you.
Mm-hmm. Which tends to be when parents can get there after work, and a lot of times you start games at 5:45 and parents can't get there.
Sometimes,
So.
yeah.
But we should just,
So I know, I think it's fine.
yeah.
I thought that the superintendent had a reasonable
Well,
resolution.
I think the superintendent made improvements, but I don't think we're there yet.
You want to go
So-
first?
Yeah,
Great.
well, equal, that's what Title IX is all about.
You want the
Equal treatment.
women to be equal
Okay.
to the boys? My God.
I do, in fact.
What is the thing here?
Anybody else have the discussion? No. Okay, the board will now vote on resolution 5055. All in favor, please say.
Could we roll call, please?
Indicate by saying yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was
Yes.
You guys. All opposed, please indicate by saying no. No. Any abstentions? Resolution 5055 is approved by a vote of 4-1 with.
Nice going,
and
Belial.
I forgot to mention that student representative Jaswal is not with us tonight, so that's it.
Nice
Okay.
going, Belial.
Our next item is the business agenda. The board will now consider the remainder of the business agenda, having already voted on resolution 5055. Ms. Houston, any changes? Any public comment? Okay. Do I have a motion and a second to adopt the business agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Director Regan moves and Director Belial seconds the adoption of the business agenda. Ms. Houston, is there any, I already asked about public comment. Any discussion on the board?
You know what, I had one question. Would you give me just 2 seconds? Oh, under new contracts, I'm on page 14 of new contracts. Superintendent, we have a new expenditure contract, which is it's called school specialty. It's the purchase of classroom furniture, and I'm sorry, I meant to send this to you earlier, and I apologize. Purchase of classroom furniture with related accessories and supplies on an as-needed basis for bond-funded Office of School Modernization projects. It says not to exceed $8 million. That seems like a fantastic amount of money. I wanted to make sure that wasn't a typo. And why would we be, I mean, I'm assuming this classroom furniture is for our new high schools primarily, and those aren't even going to be coming about for 2 years when we're actually moving kids back. Well, Roosevelt, I guess, could be. I'm not sure why we're approving this big a contract for furniture at this moment in time. And just would love an explanation.
Jim Owens,
Okay.
an opportunity to respond.
Thank you. Jim Owens, Senior Director, Office of School Modernization. Thank you for the question. This is a large item that's noted. The reason staff is requesting this authority is due to the nature of cooperative agreements. The budgets that we have in our projects for Franklin High School and for Roosevelt High School, and also furnishings for Marshall, require that we look at cooperative agreements, and we don't know how many cooperative agreements we'll need to be using. So we have been estimating that this particular one with School Specialty, who is the provider that we're looking at, we could order as much as $8 million from School Specialty for those 3 sites. It likely won't be that much, but we don't know exactly how many different co-ops we'll be using, so we put in the maximum amount that we thought we would use, which is actually aligned with our budgets for furniture, fixture, and equipment for these 3 projects.
Director Buell?
So this is money out of the bond?
Correct. This is for Office of School Modernization to use on 3 bond-funded projects: Marshall, Franklin, and Roosevelt.
Marshall?
Well,
Correct.
Marshall's
As
a
a
swing space.
swing
I know
site.
it's a swing school, but why would we be putting new
So we need to
material into Marshall? Don't we, can't we just move over what's in Franklin that we're not gonna use, the tables, and put them in trucks and move them across?
Not entirely. In fact, that's actually what's triggered the request now, is we have a requirement to purchase some science tables for Marshall that aren't in place now. That'll be needed to support the students from Franklin there for the 2-year period.
So are they glued to the floor in Franklin or something?
These are items that are either partially attached or they're completely relocatable, easily moved. So it's a
They're not
mixture of
easily,
it.
they're not easily moved,
Correct.
and they're not even movable.
Well, they're movable. Some of them are attached to the flooring or to casework, but it's a mix of minimally attached equipment and then also equipment that's fully portable, fully movable.
Could we unscrew them and move them for less than it costs new ones, or are we spending more money to cost new ones? There's 2 moves, it'd be over and back. Because it costs more to move them over and back than it does to spend new ones. How much are the new tables, say?
This is needed for both the Franklin students as well as the Grant students, because the improvements at
So if you move
Marshall
them, so
are
you move them to
supporting both.
Franklin to Marshall, back to Franklin,
Right.
and move them from Grant to Marshall and back to Grant, it's cheaper to buy new ones
Right.
than it is to move them twice.
There are quite a few items that are at Franklin now that are being moved over to Marshall to support
What about
support
like
them.
desks?
But then there's also new items that are needed.
Moving
there-
student desks?
There are also some student desks that are being moved, but only a portion of them. The bond project scope includes purchasing furnitures, fixtures, and equipment for the full modernization projects.
For the bond included purchasing money for
The new high
We
school.
have a-
Marshall?
We have a line item.
for Marshall. Well, when we move them to Marshall, the new stuff, then will we move that new stuff back to Franklin?
It's a mixture of movement of furnishings for the schools. The bond was intended to support limited purchase of furniture, fixture, and equipment at Marshall to support both Franklin students and Grant students.
What was our estimate for the amount of money at Marshall?
For furniture, fixture,
Yeah,
equipment, it's
yeah.
it's a little over $100,000.
So it's 100,000, so we're at 8 million on these, and 100,000 is all that they've got at Marshall.
Correct. The furniture, fixture, and equipment budgets for Franklin and for Roosevelt are both $4 million each. So this is a request for a potential of using school specialty for that full amount. It likely won't be that much, but we needed to be able to indicate the maximum amount that would be ordered through this permissive cooperative.
When we got rid of our shops, we chunked huge amounts of furniture that some of which we'd kind of like to have back. What are we going to do with the Roosevelt furniture that we're not using anymore?
So some of the furniture is being surplused because it's beyond useful life. Other furnishings are being able we're able to use it at other school sites. Some of it is able to be auctioned, so the revenue stream that we generate from that, we push back into the project. It's a mixture of movement of this equipment.
Okay.
Director Regan?
And my question was more, I mean, I understood that with the new schools, we were also looking at new furnishings, and I think that's appropriate. I'm assuming that most of these desks and tables are 60, 70, 80 years old, so I'm fine with that. I'm just curious about why we would be spending $8 million or looking to expend that now rather than in a year or a year and a half from
You're
now.
negotiating the contract
Yeah.
now.
Okay.
We're not actually stating we're going to encumber that amount. This is
Okay.
authority to use this cooperative agreement to be able to order from. So it's a maximum authorization. We're not saying we're going to
Okay.
encumber
And
this amount
you're
of money.
confident that at some point we wouldn't want to use a different vendor?
We have-
I guess I don't know what
This
what
doesn't
a
preclude that.
You
We-
could still do
cooperative
that.
is.
We have other cooperative agreements that
Uh-huh.
we'll be bringing forth as well.
Okay.
This particular one with School Specialty is identified here. There might be some others that would use other cooperative
Okay.
arrangements. This is a alternative to do in separate competitions for it, because these firms provide a wide variety of FF&E, furniture, fixture, and equipment. This makes sense to do it this way. And I would also add, this is not uncommon to purchase FF&E in this fashion.
Okay, yeah, it just seemed like a
What's
shockingly.
Furniture, fixture, and equipment
Okay.
Yeah, it just seemed like a
Essentially items
shockingly
that
big
are
number
movable.
at this point in time, so.
within a school.
So it's possible to have other agreements with other FFE providers?
Correct. Right. For
And this
example,
doesn't, there's nothing in this agreement that precludes that?
right, the Fabian project, for example, has a different cooperative.
No, but is there a different, could we go with, if, within Franklin and Roosevelt, this is tying us to this particular one for all FFE?
This allows this mechanism to be used for 3 projects. So furniture for Roosevelt, for Franklin, and for Marshall.
I know. But let's just say that another provider raises their hand and says, understand you're getting desks at X amount from
Right.
this, and we can provide it for cheaper. Would this preclude us from doing that?
Would not preclude us from doing that.
Okay.
It also wouldn't preclude us from purchasing it through a separate
Yeah.
arrangement, competitive bid.
Director Buell?
So this is $8 million, none of which goes out for bid?
This is $8 million that would be, the cooperative agreement's already been competed, so this is within the framework of the permissive cooperative agreement,
What does already been competed mean?
meaning the vendors that provide these items have already competed for this work on a broader scale. This isn't just Portland Public Schools using these agreements, these are across school districts. So the work has already been competed from the standpoint of cost, from the standpoint of fit and finish, the features that are actually identified, and you order from a list from the co-op, and then you put them in place.
So how big a co-op is it, the list ordered from?
How big is it?
How big a co-op? I mean, is it 200 more school districts, or is it
These are
50
national.
school districts, or 3? I mean, it's interesting. I'm just curious about when that's coming.
This particular one is with the National Joint Powers Alliance. Some of you may be familiar with that, NJPA, and it's national. So school districts across the country can actually use this. The $8 million we've identified here is, of course, just for PPS on those 3 bond projects, but districts can use that co-op for furnishings for their districts as well.
Great. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Thank you, Jim. Okay, the board will now vote on the business agenda. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, please indicate by saying no. No noes. Any abstentions? Business agenda is approved by a vote of 5-0. And I think that's the end of our agenda. It is. Next meeting of the board will be held on Tuesday, April 14th, and this meeting is adjourned.